speak now to Rami Khouri, who's an adjunct professor of journalism at the American University of Beirut. He's joining us from there. And Rami, it's amazing, isn't it, how some people, presumably one, if not more, of the blockading countries are prepared to go to such extraordinary lengths to try to whip up anti-Qatar sentiment.
Well, it tells us several things. It tells us the desperation of the Emiratis and Saudis and others who do this kind of thing. It tells us their lack of commitment really to the truth in this situation and their embracing of make-believe worlds. But it also tells us a lot about how things work in London and in the Western world, where media effect and propaganda on social media and just a photo on Twitter or something is worth more than anything else. The tragedy is that everybody who's been involved in this kind of media propaganda, which includes some lies, some exaggerations, all kinds of terrible things that truthful journalists dislike, everybody loses when they do this. The degradation that's been done to the Emirati, Saudi, Bahraini, and Egyptian medias in particular has been striking. And I should add, unfortunately, some of the local press in Qatar occasionally have even gotten into this act with some of their newspaper stories. The broadcast media haven't done it, but certainly it has happened in some other cases. So everybody loses from this, and really everybody should wake up and be more mature.
Yeah, but Rami, political lobbying is a well-established trade, isn't it? It's on both sides of the Atlantic, in the UK and in the United States. It raises vast sums of money, doesn't it? And this has been put to good use by all parties involved in this blockade of Qatar.
Well, there's a difference between legitimate lobbying and fantasy propaganda and make-believe worlds in the media based on hired actors, not based on real human political sentiments. That's the dividing line. So everybody, the Qataris, the Emiratis, everybody has hired lobbyists in the United States, has taken out some advertisements, legitimate advertisements, but this kind of thing goes well beyond that realm of the legitimate and the factual into the realm of the desperate and the frenzied and the fantasy world. And of course, people in London and New York and Washington and Arab capitals, Beirut is one of them, and places in the Gulf, they're happy to make a lot of money doing this kind of stuff. And this is a tragedy because it tells us a lot about the commercialization and the degradation of the integrity of what had long been honorable news media or professions, like, for instance, public relations or advertising, have now been brought into this game of lies and exaggeration. So everybody loses from this. But the Emiratis have been particularly active in this field, and therefore they're the ones who should be the most embarrassed.
And Rami, we're talking on a day when, as we've just seen, the Emir is visiting London. He's having talks with the Prime Minister there, Theresa May, and the day after the UN's highest court, the ICJ, made a preliminary ruling which favoured Qatar's argument. How does it stand more than a year after the 4 blockading nations took this action against Qatar? Is Qatar isolated, or how is Qatar placed in terms of the international community?
It's clear that the basic aims of the blockade have not worked. The political campaign against Qatar has not worked. It's been mostly based on lies and exaggerations, supporting terrorism and stuff like that. Qatar played it very well, low-key. Qatar quickly reoriented its trade and travel arrangements, and therefore only had a brief hiccup in terms of its imports and exports, and is growing again now at a very healthy pace. It had to draw down its reserves a little bit, but it's in fine shape, and the new strategic relationships that Qatar has now with places like Iran, Turkey, India, other European countries, China and others. This is far stronger than any minor temporary damage that was done to it by the blockade. And politically, most people in the world clearly have spoken out against the blockade, saying it really was excessive, it wasn't really necessary. If there was a genuine disagreement, which there was on some issues, it could have been worked out in-house and peacefully through the GCC mechanisms. The GCC is dead now. The credibility of many media in the blockading countries is dead now. And the political ambitions of many of these countries in Washington has also taken a big hit. So everybody has suffered a little bit, but the aim of the blockade clearly has not worked, and Qatar will come out of this in fine shape.
Rami Khouri, live from Beirut, thank you very much.